The 2020 Stellaris ModJam is out now. Use the links in the description below to download it and play with the origins right now and vote on your favorite creators. This video has not been made possible by Paradox Interactive, but has been made on my own accord because I feel that creators should be supported. Welcome back to the ModJam. Today we're going to be looking at Stellar Pioneers, another fascinating little origin that is part of said ModJam. I've built this little empire. It's called the Screwed Mandate. We started on a continental world. It's all stuff that is not interesting, even though Memorialists does have a little bit of a kick here. So let's go ahead and take a look at Stellar Pioneers and see what they do. Stellar Pioneers. This civilization tried to colonize its closest system before the advent of FTL, basically slow boating over there with sleeper ships, and now they have discovered a hyperspace network and it's time to see what happened out there. What does it do? Well, it starts off with one of the most fascinating things I've seen in quite some time, an early habitat as well as a space elevator building on your homeworld. And it does all sorts of cool things, and we'll tie into that later. On top of that, you get a terraforming candidate in your home system. The space elevator may only be built on worlds, allowing the construction of the aforementioned early habitat through a planetary decision. It's not that expensive, and it's incredibly good value. Once again, we'll get into that. And on top of that, it gets a special district called a manufacturing district, which, well, it generates a certain amount of resources that makes Stellar Pioneers incredibly powerful. And finally, it gets a guaranteed planet, a guaranteed habitable planet with more events. Yes, there is events attached to that. Now, like I said, I've built this empire. Let's dive right into Stellar Pioneers, what it does, and how powerful it actually is. So we start off here in the Screwed system. It's 2 years into the game. I've played a little bit with this particular setup, and we've done a little bit of looking around. We've pulled out the Grunur because, you know, Gaia worlds are cheap, apparently, and let's just dive in. As you can see, our solar system is pretty straightforward, even though we have already managed to get a bunch of structures in space. We actually start off with a reasonable amount of resources in space. However, the big one is L4 Station. Now, L4 Station is fascinating, but before we dive into that, we actually need to take a look at our capital. Now, on our capital, we have a building called a space elevator. We can only have one of these per planet. It costs 500 minerals per pop, and they generate an absolutely astounding plus 10 amenities. And what does amenities do? Well, of course, it increases happiness, which then, of course, increases stability. If we quickly pop over towards our population and look at one of our workers, you will see that due to high amenities, we get a massive amount of happiness boosts, which means that we get a large amount of stability. And that right there is a huge boon to us. It means that we can generate a lot of resources on planets that have space elevators on them. But what can we actually do with these space elevators? Well, we can generate what are called the early habitats. Here is a good example. It's L4 Station. It's pretty much a standard habitat except for a couple of minor things. As we actually go into the place, we can see we got a colony habitat here. It's got the usual designations. We can actually boost this to a foundry or a factory station for various reasons. Basically, what it can do here is generate a lot of additional resources through its very special manufacturing district. Costs 500 alloys. We get 2 districts right off the get-go, and it gets a little bit of housing and a little bit of metallurgist jobs as well as artisan jobs. Now that means that we can generate alloys as well as consumer goods in space. So that right there is incredibly useful. So basically, because we get 2 additional jobs here in the alloy department, setting them up to a foundry station is actually a good idea because it means that we can get more resources out of it. Basically, we can get less upkeep required for our metallurgists. And again, a word that I'm not particularly great at pronouncing, but that doesn't really matter. Still though, you're wondering by yourself, okay, ASpec, that is cool and all. We get ourselves in habitat, we get 2 places of planetary growth. What do we actually get out of this, considering this is, in fact, one of those early habitats? Well, early habitats are kind of curious in their setup. First of all, considering it is one of these places, it means that we have a couple of modifiers attached to it. Basically, we get a reduced amount of pop growth speed speed as well as the build speed on our pops, which is not all that great. And once we start building another one of these, we can see that we've got a blocker here, which reduces habitability as well as pop growth speed. Basically, we see that this is not all that great due to the low amount of district slots as well as the amount of housing and general jobs availability. Generally, what you want to do here is build one district and one habitation district. Preferably manufacturing in this particular case because of the resources that you can get here, and then civvy those out. But still, there is a lot more to this particular origin. Let's go into the future a little bit and see what is up, because the origin does describe that our species went out early in our history to colonize more planets. As you can see, there could be planets afoot. Who knows what is out there? Oh yes, there is story behind this one. Now we've moved a little bit further into the future, and as you can see, we are now at 2231. We've got a little bit more space. We snaked our way out of places to make sure that we get access to a lot more space and basically lock in the enemy. I know there is a fallen empire down here, which is going to cause some problems in the future, and we are blocked off on this side as well by some ancient drones. Now obviously that's not going to be a problem in the long run. We'll crush them and then find out who is blocking this area of space, but it doesn't really matter right now. What does matter is this particular archaeological site. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I can't really go into the depth of it because it kind of ruins the story. Regardless, we've managed to get ourselves a nice little world over here, and we can now build ourselves on our first tile the wonders of a space elevator. And as I mentioned before, it does cost 450 minerals as well as a little bit of upkeep, but it does generate a huge amount of amenities. Now with that space elevator, if we quickly go over to our other planet called Minerva, you can see that we already have a space elevator over here, and it allows us a decision of building a early habitat. Now this does allow us to construct one of these early habitats for only 2,000 minerals, not alloys as normal habitats do, minerals, 150 influence as well as a little bit of time, which is great. However, the big problem with this is that it may cause some problem. Now, basically what happens here is that any early habitat, once it is done, once the habitat technology is unlocked, allows us to upgrade it to a full-on normal habitat, which is really great because it means that this particular type of empire, considering it already has a really big foothold in space early on, can play with habitats very, very well. All your worlds should have habitats on them, at least the early habitats at the earliest possible moment, because it does allow for, once again, the glory that is the manufacturing districts. You should probably not do this particular setup. You should probably just build yourself a habitation district here, and we can jump into the future to see what all of this stuff means once we've got the technology that we require unlocked. Now, once again, we've dived into the future a little bit further, and as you can see on several of our worlds, we've got these habitats up and running, and as you can see, they are still the same ones of before. We got one habitation district and a manufacturing district, but it's going to cause some problems. However, we can give a decision now that we have the habitat technology unlocked. For only 500 alloys, that is a minuscule amount to the amount that you would normally need to build a habitat, you can refit your standard habitat to basically bring it up to, you know, a habitat you unlock, and it increases the size to 4 as well. For only 500 alloys in 720 days, that is a absolute bargain because, well, it does turn it into this particular type of habitat that still has this manufacturing district on top of it. Basically, it means that any habitat that is attached to a world, a planet, so to speak, can become a alloy and consumer good powerhouse. And that also ties into the joys of our technology as well as some of our other stuff, because let's say we go into here and we go into Voidborn, and there we go. We got Voidborn unlocked, and instantly we get more building slots as well as more space on our planets, or at least our habitats. Basically, it allows us to go for our next level of technology when it comes to upgrading those habitats. Still, it costs 1,000 alloys a pop, which is very reasonable. We can just buy a bunch of alloys and do that right away. Let's just cancel out these manufactoriums and just upgrade this thing. Obviously, we need to fill out the districts first before we can do that. But once all that stuff is done, you can just go ahead and basically say, okay, every single one of our worlds, whether or not it's our capital world or this rural world that we've got over here, and they all can get these space elevators and basically build themselves a early habitat on top of them for basically free. 2,000 minerals at this point in the game is absolute nothing. So the amount of balancing here may not be the best, but still being able to do all this stuff this early on and getting such a foothold in the industrial part of the game will make you the king of the Senate, so to speak, within the galactic community, and an absolute industrial powerhouse. Plus, having all of these additional places to generate new pops is absolutely crazy, and in my particular scenario, I had also the Baul relic, which effectively means that I can turn all my worlds into Gaia worlds to boost their performance even more. Still, though, overall, the origin of the Stellar Pioneers is excellent. It's good fun. It needs a little bit of balance here and there, but it's actually really, really good for something that was put together in about 3 to 4 weeks. This is something that I actually put in the base game if I must, because it has story, it has a bunch of other stuff. There's some things that I haven't unlocked here. For instance, apparently some of my pioneers from one of my spaceships were abducted, and now I need to go ahead and find whomever has done it. So that is the question that leads to the future. Is there more stuff to this in the late game? Possibly. Can we continue building space elevators? Absolutely. And there is so much fun to be had here, and I'm really looking forward to play more with this particular origin, because it is a lot of fun. I highly recommend for you to go and try it out. It is like Voidborn on crack, and really, really good. If you're interested in playing this, you can go ahead and go onto the Steam Workshop and get the Stellaris ModJam 2020. There's a link down in the description below. Make sure you click on that and go towards the page and subscribe, because, well, it directly supports the creative community that is out there, the modders, so to speak. And also, of course, there's also the vote, and by the 4th of January, I believe the final vote will come in, and the decision will be made which of the origins will win. On your screen right now is a couple of videos that will link you to the rest of the origins. Make sure you go to the playlist and go and check those out, because they are a lot of fun, especially the Ancient Juggernaut and Freebooters, as well as Containment Breach are really good. Go and try them out, and yeah, basically taking it from there. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and also my Patreons. Or patrons? But yeah, it wouldn't be possible without you guys out there. It's been a real joy making these videos over the last few years. In the meantime, though, we're going to go and wrap it up here. Make sure that you go and check out the ModJam, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, support your creators.